Hey everyone, welcome to the 371st episode of Just Shoot It, a podcast about filmmaking, screenwriting, and directing. This episode is brought to you by patron Alex Reeves. Thanks, Alex. I'm Oren Kaplan.
And I'm Matt Enlow. Today we've got Matt Smukler on the podcast. He's got a new film coming out called Wildflower. It's available for rent on all of the streaming platforms you rent movies on, and it's available to watch on Hulu June 23rd. So depending on when you're watching, you might be able to check it out now.
It's Matt's first film, but it stars Kiernan Shipka, Gene Smart, and a bunch of other amazing actors. I mean, it's crazy. We talk a lot about how he got his cast, it being his first film and all. And spoiler alert, he's been a filmmaker for quite a long time. It's based on a true story, based on his niece, who had parents that were neurodivergent, and she had to take care of them. It's cool. Check out the trailer. And our conversation with him, I felt like was very much about directing and us all being directors. So because of that, we probably don't really need to catch up, because I feel like a lot of what we covered, especially at the end of the conversation, is kind of in the world of our catch-ups.
Yeah, this conversation was really fun. And there's a lot of different reasons we do this show. But one of them is just to connect with filmmakers who we just have shared experiences or past or like similar life paths. And this one, it just felt like, oh, Matt feels like an old friend. Like our experiences are so similar. And so it was a really easy, fun conversation where we dig in, and talk about the life of a commercial director, then the life of a feature director and how those intersect. I have a hunch if you're listening to the show, you probably want to do at least one, if not both of those things. It's a really fun conversation on both sides of that coin.
Yeah. And Matt Smukler's commercial work is like
world class. So good.
Yeah, like A level. Like go to mattsmukler.com, mattsmukler.com, and just look at the stills from his commercials, and you'll be like, okay, pretty obvious. This guy knows what he's doing with the camera and storytelling. So anyhow, it was a really fun chat, and I think you'll like it. Can't wait to hear what people think. And should we just hop straight into our Patreon plug?
Let's do it. Yes. Patreon.com/JustShootItPod is the place where you can go to support the show, keep our editor up and running, and pay all those bills for us. It's the equivalent of buying us a cup of coffee or saying thank you. So if you get something out of the show, if you find that it's worthwhile and that it's helped you in your career in some way, consider throwing us a couple bucks.
We would love it. Patreon.com/JustShootItPod. We appreciate you all. And let's start talking to another Matt. Apologies for the over-mattification of this show. But here we are with Matt Smukler. Okay, guys, we are here with Matt Smukler, another Matt. My opening question, I have a shoot tomorrow morning. I'm curious what you guys do. You shower the night before. Let's say your call is 7 a.m. and it's like a half-hour drive and you got to park in a lot and get shuttled to set. Let's say you were trying to be there at 6 a.m. Do you wake up at like 5 a.m., shower, and then leave at like 5:30? Or do you shower the night before? Or you just figure you're going to get pretty dirty on set anyway? Who needs to shower? What's the protocol?
I am a shower the night before guy. But, what's happened to me is with kids is I do get up so fucking early that sometimes I'm like, I'm up early. I'm up anyway. So why not just, so I tend to do, but I do tend to go shower at night before.
Yeah, I think a similar answer, but slightly tweaked. I used to wake up extra early. I'm a morning person. So I used to be like, oh yeah, I'll wake up extra early. No problem. I'll shower before and then I'll hit the road. And I like to make a coffee and, like I had my whole routine. But like now with the kids, it's just one, but still my whole rhythm is thrown off. So like I'll count it as a win if I've showered, period. I'm okay with that.
I'm still on the podcast, Smukler. We talk a lot about like how to dress and stuff and on set. And I've still, we know that there's something nice about like, being like the nicest dressed person on set when you're the director. So people aren't mistaking you for the PA or whatever.
Just wear a suit. I mean, you just got to wear a suit.
But I still kind of just like roll in with the hoodie because it's just, I want to get as much sleep because I know I'm going to be like at 1,000% for the next like 12 hours.
I did have something where it was like I wore a tie for like maybe the first 10 years, and my AD had to wear a tie, and you could have worn a hoodie with a tie, but it was like a tie thing. And then we became superstitious that if we didn't wear the tie, it was going to be a bad shoot. And then I think I had a bad shoot with the tie, so I was able to scrap the tie and we didn't have to deal with it.
Well, so my next question, Matt, is we got your bio, we got all the press on Wildflower and everything, and you're just constantly introduced. Like people just constantly say it's your debut feature. It's like your first movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if somebody just saw your resume, like, oh, commercial director made his first movie, and then they saw the insane cast of your first movie, which is
Kiernan Shipka, Gene Smart, Jackie Weaver, Dash Mihawk, Charlie Plummer, Alexandra Daddario, Brad Garrett, Reed Scott. Brad Garrett, good call, buddy. That's a good one.
Brad Garrett was, he was the. We actually ended up writing a couple of extra scenes for him, because he was so great. It was like the end of a couple of shoot days. It was like we only had him for a couple of days, but it was like we got to write another scene for Brad.
Yeah, he's a secret weapon. He's so funny.
I was going to say, people are going to see this cast and they're going to say, you must be the son of a billionaire or be a Hollywood royalty or something, because no one gets this cast for their first feature. And that's probably because they don't know your history of like what got you to this feature.
Look, I wish that I was a billionaire or married to an heiress, but unfortunately I'm not. And it was a really long road. And I think I've talked about it a little bit on, in some other interviews and stuff about how lucky I got, which I really do feel like I have. But it was like you guys, I've been doing commercials for a long time. So I did have plenty of experience, but I don't think anybody cared about that in terms of the cast. It was, I really think came down to the script and the fact that I had been working on a documentary for 6 years about this family. And so I had this, most of them didn't ask to see the actual full documentary, but I did have this, amazing trailer from the documentary. And I just think they were able to connect the dots.
Would you call it almost a proof of concept in a certain sense? Like it gives a sense of the tone and the feeling and what you're trying to say with the story?
No, I mean, I was nodding my head yes, but the truth is it wasn't really a proof of concept in terms of tone, because it was wildly different. And I actually had no interest at the time when it got brought up to me to make a feature. I had just lived with this and I didn't really see a way in that would be different. So I was like, I have a great documentary, and it was very, very run and gun. I mean, sometimes it was me with a camera. Sometimes I did bring a DP, friends. It was really kind of, and it was never more than 3 of us. And so it was really like just kind of like when I wasn't busy, I would run over, because it was in Henderson, Nevada. So it was like 4-hour drive. We'd spend the night and we'd shoot, and so it really, I wasn't thinking about it in terms of a narrative or, this could be a piece that could help us sell the narrative. I was working on another movie with Jana Savage, who was a screenwriter, and I had showed her some footage, and I think it was her who said, it was the dueling grandmothers, and I remember that moment. We were at a coffee shop, and she was like, we should pivot and do, turn this into a feature, and it wasn't until I sort of thought about it through a comedic lens that was then allowed me to have some distance, I think, and saw it as its own thing. I really was not. I didn't want to recreate the documentary, and I did. There was a producer who wanted to come on, and he wanted me to make ordinary people. I'll never forget it. He was like, he didn't see how this could be made sort of in a, it's a dramedy. It's not a comedy, but it is. I just wanted there to be some levity, and I just spent 6 years kind of doing the other version. But I do think, to your point, it was something they could see, that there was an actual family. These characters were not just, they weren't just written. They were based on people, and loosely based, but at least they were something.
But so what else, or can you just tell us real quick the log line of the documentary?
The log line is basically an 18-year-old girl who is trying to decide whether to stay at home and take care of her neurodivergent parents or go to college. And she's, was 14th in the state of Nevada for track and field, but also an amazing caretaker for her parents. And so I didn't, know that exactly at the time. I started out, full transparency, it was a companion piece, because this girl is my niece. So it's based on my wife's family and her sister. And so I was there to kind of make a piece for her to submit to college along with her SATs, because she really didn't think that she was.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, she didn't think she was she's like, there's nothing
that's great,
that unique about me. And I'm like, well, there's a couple of things that are kind of unique about you. And so maybe we'll just film it in that way. And so I went to a track meet and filmed there. And then I went to their house and kind of was pretty blown away. I hadn't really known much actually about their family because they're very self-sufficient. They don't like any, they don't really like any help. They don't want any, and they're doing sort of great on their own. And so there was a little bit of a distance, but then I really got to know them over the years. And so that's how it happened. So I had this little short piece, which ended up getting her like in a full ride to college. So that was a success in its own.
The short film did?
Yeah, it wasn't a short film. Doc? It was like a short, like a little short piece. It wasn't even really with a beginning.
How long was it?
I feel like I really dropped the ball on helping my cousin out with his water polo reel. Sorry, Billy. I'm sure a lot of listeners at home are like...
My claim to fame is the preschool teacher's appreciation video, where I got 5 kids to have their 5 parents to record. Yeah, thank you.
That's got to be your tone piece for your feature. I mean...
And is that even a thing? Can you submit videos for college applications?
I had no idea, but I really
you're pitching. You're literally pitching colleges the same way you pitched commercials.
I mean, kind of. I was just sort of like, I didn't know how to explain to her that, you're really extraordinary. And, and so I basically said, I'm going to come out there and just film you at the track meet. Let me just come do that. I didn't even tell her what the reason was or anything. And then it just became very clear to me what I needed to do.
So you've made this video and then you're like, oh, this has to evolve into something larger.
So then, I had never done a documentary before. I had done, I think, like you guys, we've done commercials where there's real people and stuff like that, but I'd never done anything. And so what happened was it was just, I became more and more fascinated by their dynamic. And then also, one thing after another. I mean, like in the movie, we start with Kieran in a coma, and that happened, while we were filming. Like she ended up, having an accident, which we still to this day don't know exactly what happened. But she ended up slipping and cracking her head and was in a coma, was on life support. I mean, it was insane. So, I was able to kind of just one thing after another. Then there was her rehab, and then there was this whole, then graduation, and I did know that I was there at a time when, it was like, we have her, lots of things happen to you in your senior year I think for most people, it's like, you work really hard and you take the SATs and you hope you get into college and you say goodbye to your parents. Like I knew that wasn't going to be her trajectory. So I was there to sort of observe it.
And you just have like a Sony A7S or something, or like an iPhone? Like, how are you shooting this?
Yeah, it was iPhone. It was a Canon 350. That
just kind of like whatever you could grab.
Whatever we had, it was a mix and match. Yeah,
like a lav mic here or there.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I usually had a sound person with me. That was something I knew that was really important. But yeah, not all the time. That's for sure. So I made the documentary, and then my niece really wanted her story to get out there, and so we started talking to some distributors and stuff. And then at the same time, the narrative started to kind of really get some momentum. And then the producers asked me to wait on the documentary. They're like, let's get the feature out. And then they're like, you're going to be even happier, like, with the doc. And so, now I'm just starting that process of, cause the movie's going to premiere on Hulu on the 23rd of June. And so I've shared it with them and see if they would want to, it seems like they would want the doc too.
Both films are called Wildflower. Are you changing the name of the documentary, or? I tried
to change the name of this movie, like the narrative. I really did, because I was like, look, it exists as a documentary, and everybody loved the title so much, and so I don't know. That's a good question, and I feel like, my niece had written down on a kind of a list of things that she made a list for herself, and one of the things was "I don't cry," and so that I thought could be a really beautiful title for her. She's so strong, and you can see like she really tries her best in the movie really to never cry. So I
was going to say,
powerful, but I don't know.
Listen, you call a movie "I Don't Cry."
Yeah, that's like saying there's a gun under the table.
Yeah, exactly. That's Chekhov's emotional repression.
Yeah. So do you have this doc? You have this script. Your friend Jana that you are working on, writing stuff with.
Right, so you're totally trying to connect the dots through people. So here's how. The reason
Yeah, it's because, our listeners that are like, oh, if I make this documentary, does that mean I get this feature film with like all these A-list
Yeah.
stars? Like I'm trying
Okay, so
create the
here's
whole
how.
fabric.
Yeah. It didn't. Nobody that I knew, none of my good friends were. I didn't reach out to them for any help or anything like that. What happened was it was a very random thing that happened to me, and it was, I guess, for anybody who plays tennis and is also a filmmaker, they should take note because I was playing tennis with a guy that I knew. I didn't know him that well, but
Mm-hmm.
we started
Rainn
talking as we were,
Wilson,
picking up.
Sam
What was that?
Zwiebelman. There's like a whole tennis scene. Carlin Hudson,
There's a
our
tennis.
Oh, yeah.
frequent guest
Oh,
and dear friend, plays tennis, and a
Yeah,
similar
she's
oh,
story.
like
really? Well,
friends
everybody
with
should play
every
tennis.
director.
Yeah,
I would imagine you people will
Yes.
after this. No, we were picking up balls, and I remember in between, and we started talking about what do you do, what do you do, and he said he's a producer, and I was like, oh, I'm a director, and then he shared a script with me, one that I liked, I didn't love, and then I said, oh well, I've been working on this script, and I shared him Wildflower, and it turns out he was a producer, but he hadn't produced anything yet, and sort of got to know each other more and more, and I was like, this is the kind of guy I would really love to produce this movie, but it really was a pipe dream because he hadn't done anything, but he ended up passing it along to Jamie Patricoff at Hunting Lane, and so Hunting Lane then got the script, and then they jumped in, and then so it was my friend Kyle Owens, who is at a company called Morning Moon. So they ended up partnering together, and that's when it really started to kind of go. And so Hunting Lane ended up getting our financing, and once we had the financing, which I think it can be anything. I mean, I think what I learned is it can be an fairly arbitrary number, but as long as you can make an offer, and in this movie, this is obviously an indie movie, and I think I can say this. I mean, everybody worked for pretty much scale. That's kind of the way it worked. And getting real producers on who have relationships. It wasn't me. I guess the bottom line is it wasn't my relationships or my friends. I do
It
feel like
wasn't like
that's tricky.
UTA repping you and packaging you with like other people.
No, and
like,
I've been with Gersh. I've been with Gersh forever, and I love my agent. But no, even there, I mean, one thing I will say in terms of my agent is he was always cracking the whip on me to generate. Like he was like, look, it was a learning process for me because like you guys, like we have reps and they bring us stuff and they send us scripts and we decide, oh yeah, we want to do it or we don't. He was like, that doesn't work like that. Like in movies, you have to have something I can sell. Like I can't sell you off your commercials. He's like, I signed you off your commercials. But what was really kind of great for me to learn from him was just generate. He's like, go shoot shorts, like use your crew, after a commercial, and just do anything other than commercials, like, but tell longer stories. And so
which is a thing reps love to tell you. They're like, oh man, just go make a short, but like use your commercial crew, like keep the camera for a couple days longer. Ask that whole team that just busted their asses at full rates to like just hang out a little while, and like as if you don't have to go kiss some butt with the agency, or
17 cuts of a commercial in a date.
I think that maybe once upon a time they did that. Like maybe I heard a story about David Fincher years ago did that or whatever, but that was a long ass time ago.
No, it's very true,
anyway,
and you can't.
It makes me laugh.
No, it's true. But I think the point of what I did glean from him was it's not going to come from him. You know what I mean? Like whatever it is, it's going to come from me. And so, and I would do shorts, I would do this, and that didn't actually, the truth is that didn't do anything. Like, he wasn't able to, it was always me kind of generating, and then it ended up with a script.
Like when you're sending a script to Kiernan Shipka and you say, hey, and a little docu thing, you think she's not Googling Matt Smukler, director, and like going to your website and being like, ooh, this, what's her name is in his short Until Dawn, or like he made something with Justin Bieber. Like other people with reputations trust this guy to direct.
I don't know. I thought that. I guess but I don't know. The truth is, I think, like I asked, I had lunch with Kiernan the other day, and I asked her point blank. I was like, she was talking about how she picks projects, and I remember asking her, because I was like, in theory, I was a first time filmmaker. That got beat into me,
Mhm.
from the producers, and and we can talk about that. Like, even though obviously
Did
I
they
was like,
think that was
no,
like
but
a
I've been on.
selling point?
No, it was a selling point for them to basically, so I would
To
not be able
undermine
to
you.
bring certain people. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah,
we don't
right.
normally work with first
Yeah,
time filmmakers.
but in the truth, like, isn't the truth that you probably have done commercials whose budgets are bigger than your entire feature film budget, right?
Yes, and the reality is we've been on, collectively, all of us, three of us have been on more sets and spent more time actually
Sure.
crafting than most. So yeah, but that was something that, and I just remember asking her, and I think it's the material, and then she's like, and then because we had met prior, we ended up having a meeting before. I think most actors, they want to connect with the director and hear their vision. And I don't know if the commercials, my guess is that my commercials meant nothing to her, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, you never know who, like, what her people, like, someone's doing due diligence, right? And like Googling you real quick and seeing some good work. And then when their boss is like, oh, is this guy for real? They can say, yeah, he's done some awesome stuff. That's probably the extent of it, but that is meaningful,
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's like CS's story. Look, these guys can tell a story. They know, they've been on set. I mean, they know how to, beginning, middle, and an end. But I do think that there's one thing that I was getting a little bit in the beginning from the producers was like, oh, you come from commercials. You have tons of money to do stuff. You guys throw
Mhm.
money at everything. This is an indie
Mhm.
film. We don't know if your people, meaning I was, I really wanted to bring
Right.
a lot of my
Your
crew over. We don't know if they know how to do an indie film. And luckily I was able to bring production designer who came from commercials but had done a couple films, a
Mhm.
DP who came from commercials but has done several films, my script supervisor, Julia Schachter, who
I just worked with her.
oh, she's the best, right? I mean, she's awesome. And so, but that was like, they needed to have a film credit for the producers to say okay to me. It was really kind of tough. Like I
Mhm.
couldn't bring
Mhm.
anybody, I had to fight really hard for my wardrobe stylist, costume designer, Deborah Leclerc, who had done maybe one movie. Like that was a big fight, but I won that one. But and she crushed it. Like I wouldn't have been able to do this movie in LA with the short amount of time that I had without my keys that I'd worked with before, I feel like.
Having a shorthand with them, I think, is really valuable. Like when you're still getting to know a person and how they collaborate, all of that stuff, it's easy for producers to underestimate that value.
100%. I don't
also,
think
that crew has your back.
exactly.
Yeah. They're going to go. They know that the paydays are coming, and they're going to crush it. And they also want to do great work.
And they probably
as
like
well.
you.
Like, and they probably
but
like
I think,
you.
but to your point about the great work, I mean, I think, look, there are commercials that we love and you live and breathe, and they're amazing and they're so fun, and we put our everything into it. I think with this indie film, I do feel like breaking it up for people is really great, your crew. So it's just something different, it's exercising a different muscle. And so they did get excited, I think, in that way.
Did you have a conversation with them about the differences? Were you like, hey, my producers are a little nervous because we're used to a certain style of production. Are you down? Did you have those conversations?
I certainly did. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and it's like, look, this is the money we're going to have. There isn't any more. It's not like we can go to a client and get an overage. Like it doesn't work like that. And, but I think the truth of the matter is everybody from commercials are so fucking good at what they do. And they've been they just like, they get on a set and it's like second nature and they're so fast. And I just feel like, anybody that we brought in who wasn't in commercials, it was almost like they were much slower. So you know what I mean? Like I would take a commercial crew and I think more commercial directors should be directing TV and features. Like I just feel like the skills that we've learned, whether it's
amen, buddy.
I mean, I really believe
working with clients.
Yes, that's what
and producers, right?
Totally. It really is a lot of psychological warfare. Doing commercials. And
I think people underestimate the similarities between a client and an agency and a studio, right? They're all kind of the same breed of like, smart and engaged and business savvy and worried about their own domain and not as used to or experienced in the world of production, right? Like that's the reason we're there.
Yeah.
And so like a studio note versus a client note versus, like it's kind of the same, you employ the same skills, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Totally, 100%. And I remember if someone disagrees with you, whether it's a producer or a financier, being able to articulately explain why you're choosing this, location or why this is a little bit more. I remember I had to, about a week before maybe, or a couple of days before, I had to choose which days I was going to have the dolly. And so I was like, and so I went through with Jeff Cutter, and it was like kind of ballparked. Okay, well, I guess I don't need it on this day. I think we probably, and then what ended up happening was on the first day of shooting, which I had said, I'm not going to need it. I absolutely needed it. Like I changed my mind. I'm like, I 1,000% need it. So then we made this like, almost like a rickshaw, weird, not skateboard, but practically
right, the PVC pipe.
Yeah. And then it was kind of fun in a way, like everybody was laughing. There's pictures taken. It was like, oh, we're back in film school, but like you make it work and you do what you have to do. But that was really hard for me. Like in commercials, you just say, I want a dolly. And we decide, I think we storyboard and you're like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to use the dolly here, but then you do it and you're like, oh, I don't like that. Let's just do it handheld or whatever. Like you're not allowed to do that on an indie like this.
Yeah. You don't get gear that you might need.
But it's silly because it's not even gear. It's like a dolly. And for us, it's like, it's always on the truck. You could just grab it in a commercial.
Sure.
Yeah.
So,
I do want to go back to one thing, just because Matt and I are fascinated by how people put their projects together and I think a lot of our listeners do. And again, like Gene Smart, like, this insane cast. And I think this producer, Matt Lancaster, I talked about this before. He kind of helped me redo my entire website a year ago, which made a huge difference. And he said, look, people, they Google you, they scroll to the bottom, they look at your worst thing you've ever made, and that's how they decide if you're a good director.
Wow.
And I think that if you're Kieran or her agent or a person, and they're like, oh, we got the script from Matt Smukler, let's Google him. Like if you had 10 shorts on your website and one of them was kind of bad, like the performances felt false or the cinematography was like overly saturated or saccharine or something.
Even if one aspect was bad, which I think is maybe a little bit more realistic. No one's like, oh, I'll keep the bad short on my website just because there's 10 slots and I've only got 9 good things. It's more that like people are like, well, these shots look really good, even though this performance is bad or something.
Yeah. Or you have a celebrity, but the cinematography is like so, or it just feels false. Right. And because I think a lot of people, maybe they're in your situation. They've been directing for a while. They have all these things they've done, all these shorts and a great script and great material. And they've got a company behind them and some money. And then every actor turns them down. And I think that it's probably because of something like that. You Google the director's name and then you go to their website and then you're like, this kind of feels like a film school short. You don't want to, if you're Kiernan Shipka or any one of these like big actors, you don't want to commit to being in this movie that might look like that. Right?
Maybe even in a broader sense, you just can't give people a reason to say no, whether that's a short or a bad reputation or, it's hard to know what people are looking at when. So the trick is everyone just have a perfect resume.
Yeah. But even if they don't care about your commercials, what I'm saying is they go to your website and they see these beautiful images just in the thumbnails and they're like, okay, I get it. I mean, he's safe.
I think and I think, one thing too is that you're saying, which is really smart, is just self-edit. And I think maybe less is more and really be hard on yourself in terms of what you are putting up there to show the world. Like, this is who I am. This is the kind of work I do and want to do. And this is a good indication of what the movie's going to look like or TV show or what your taste is. Yeah. I think that's smart. And all I know is they responded to a script, that I know. And once I also have learned, like, once you get one actor, it's like a domino. Like, you just need one, and it's just as.
Who was your first one?
It was Kiernan.
Was it Kiernan?
Yeah, it was Kiernan. And it was like, it just happened very quickly after her. And, look, I've got other things now that we're trying to put together and it's not happening the way that, this did. I think it takes a lot longer for people to read. And this is where producers really can be helpful in terms of who you're submitting to and where they are in their career, because I do think this was the perfect movie for Kiernan for, you know, where she's at in her career. It was a starring role in a movie. It's her movie. You know, I don't know if she would have said yes to be the, you know, a friend or you know, someone else in the movie. Like it was. So I feel like finding somebody where they're, you know, on a rise is also, and that's where good producers can really be helpful.
Though she had starred in, I mean, obviously Sabrina, and she's
sure
TV,
she's a leading
Sabrina,
lady already.
but TV,
right?
TV, it's very, very different,
and also like genre and like youth oriented.
Yeah, and the other thing too that is I think illuminating, to say the least, is you could be really a big star in TV, and it just doesn't. They won't give you the money, or won't give me the money to make the movie with this TV actor. It's like it's even still, even though most of the content we're consuming is on TV, there's this very strange. You have to have proved yourself in a movie. Like you know, it's weird. It's like, except if you're, you know, well, you look at like Aubrey Plaza. Aubrey was really doing great. She was doing shorts, she was doing indie films, but she wasn't like the Aubrey Plaza post. You know, what's the show?
Parks and Rec.
No.
Parks and Rec. White Lotus.
No, White Lotus.
Oh,
God,
sure.
Yeah. Brain fart.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
but like now, she, you know, so it's interesting. Like that show, that it was zeitgeisty, and all of a sudden now you can't even get Aubrey. So I don't, you know, it's like I'm sort of talking out of both sides of my mouth. I think you can sort of have this crazy trajectory from TV, but what I'm finding is, well, they haven't done it. Yeah, they're great, but they haven't done movies.
They haven't done X. I always make the joke, like, I would have made a movie 10 years ago if the executives had watched Shameless or whatever, like, you know, cable drama I was casting from at the time.
Yeah.
And I think like this Aubrey Plaza versus Kiernan Shipka example is really ripe, because Kiernan Shipka, I think, has been on TV for a long time. America's watched her grow up. She's a name, a proper name for sure.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know what the viewership numbers are for White Lotus versus Sabrina the Teenage Witch, but I'm sure they're relatively comparable. But White Lotus was the most buzzy Hollywood show. Like, there's not a person at any barbecue I've been to in the last 6 months who hasn't watched White Lotus. It was like currency that you could always count on.
Two barbecues.
I've been to 2 barbecues, but like, you know, literally like meetings and stuff. Like all Hollywood people were watching that show for sure. Like, you know, the Sunday night HBO shows. As a guy who doesn't watch sports, I can count on at least being able to have a little water cooler time on Succession or something. You know, but I think that there is something real about what quote unquote is prestigious or not, you know? And that's not about whether one thing is better than the other. That's just like how Hollywood works on a certain level.
Yeah. I have one last question about putting the movie together, again, mainly just because I want to know for myself. But when you had this meeting with Kiernan, did you bring any materials? What do you bring to show her, to talk about?
I didn't bring any.
Just like say, hey, what's up?
Yeah, I didn't bring any materials. I will say what we did have was what we sent to the you know, sort of our producing partners was a deck. So I did like an intro about me, and then I just did a little bit of writing in terms of just how I saw it, look and feel and tone, but not much, nothing like what I think we do in commercials. And then just a lot of images, and then we had some bios about people who we did have, you know, some of the producers, but that, I don't know if she ever saw that or not.
What were the main movie references that you pulled from for your images, like in the deck? Yeah,
in that deck, God, it was so long ago. You know, one movie that I definitely referenced was Silver Linings Playbook, but I don't think that was in. I don't think that was in there. I think I might have just had an overall, like, more photography in there. Actually, I don't think I had any real film references, and I definitely didn't have casting references in there. I did. Right. I do think that, and you know, I think some people are on the fence about this, but I did write Jean Smart a letter, and you know, she's in the movie, so maybe that helped. I never asked her if she read it, but I did.
What did you say?
I mean, I begged and pleaded. No, I love her. I mean, I thought she's just, I just sort of was very honest about how much I am such a fan and what she could bring to this role. I felt
you're really hot right now. Everyone's talking about you, so I need you in this movie.
In terms of like trying to figure out the special sauce, like I would say that if like there's like some friends of mine, some actors actually who have done commercials and then they've had parts in some TV and stuff. They came to me with a pilot recently, like a pilot they wrote that's fucking hilarious and really great and really inventive. And I actually said to them, this was a week ago, we should just pick a scene and we should shoot it, because the truth is, yes, I've made commercials, and yes, now I've made a feature. But guess what? I haven't done TV, and it's like they're gonna be like, well, has he done
feature
TV?
Like premiered at Toronto and stuff. Like it's not like
but
it's just the first feature.
Yeah, but I'm like, why don't we pick either a monologue or there's a couple moments in there that I think could be really great, and maybe we just take half a day and we shoot it, and then that way I do feel that executives are able to visualize much, much better when they see something moving versus us giving them a lookbook, or if there's any way possible. And as commercial directors, like I feel like we should be able to do that relatively, not with a full crew. I'm not, you know what I mean? But how to like, you can take something from whatever it is you're trying to get made, and if it's not great, if it's not the tone that you're going to be doing and it doesn't look as good, or it doesn't, then obviously don't do it. But I think if you could figure out a way to do that, I do think it makes a difference.
It's funny. I was going to save this for Matt, and I do this like catch up segment before we do the interview usually, where I sent my first video treatment I've ever made. It was for a commercial, but it's kind of like a long form commercial. And it's mainly me talking with, intercutting clips and references, but it's the thing I'm pitching on is a mockumentary about this producer that is trying to put together this big event for this big company, and they have no idea what they're doing and they keep messing things up. And I filmed my treatment while my son turned 2 over the weekend. Matt came over. We had a few people over.
Oh, that's cool.
And so I filmed it like leading up to my son's party, and I, it was pre set up, but my wife kept calling me during the treatment and like having me do different things, like go get the bagels, go pick up the donuts, make the decoration, like do all the things. And so my treatment was very much done in the style that the thing I'm pitching on.
I think that's genius.
How I'm pitching it should be done.
I think there's no way you're not going to get that. Like I think it's that kind of creative thinking, that I think we need. I mean, I think, and it certainly can help people visualize. That's the truth. And that's what I do find that they have a very difficult time visualizing.
But do you feel like it has to be good? Because we've seen so many, I'm sure, Matt, you know, between the two of us, so many amazing WeFunder, Kickstarter videos, where people are showing you parts of scenes and parts of the movie they want to make and parts of this, and Indiegogo campaigns where you're like, yeah, I get it. That's like what the like home video version of this scene is.
No, I don't think you can do that. No, it has to be, you're selling yourself.
It has to be the thing.
Yeah, it has to be the thing. But I don't think it necessarily has to be celebrities in it. Like, I feel like you could do it. I don't know. Yeah, it's really hard. I'm not sure. I think that, for this TV thing, Gwyneth Paltrow is supposed to be in it for like a split second. It's like, as a goop. She's basically,
right.
podcasting about
See
this.
if she's on Cameo.
Yeah. So, I think, but we were thinking like between the three of us, can we get to someone who could be, who could impersonate her, or at least could be enough of a lifestyle-y kind of person. And let's just film this monologue that's super funny. And then it's just to get this conversation going. And that's, so like in what you did with your treatment, obviously it's going to look better than what you did, but I think it shows your personality. It shows how creative you are and what you're going to do with the piece. And so I guess that's kind of what it is. I don't think you should go in there and be like, hey, on my iPhone, this is what it's going to look like, unless you are actually going to do it on an iPhone.
It's like going in with a level of self-awareness, right? So like maybe it's a joke, or maybe you're just making it clear that it's a recreation somehow, but like just making sure that the audience is in on whatever you're trying to do. Because I was going to suggest like, oh, what if you do a level of abstraction where it's storyboards and an animatic or something like that. Then people know it's not the real movie, but you're still getting the tone across. There's a lot of different ways to approach whatever project you're talking about creatively.
Right. Yeah, you start falling into, can everyone watch a storyboard and understand what that means?
Sure, you add a little bit of animation.
No, but I think that storyboard is really smart, not in terms of getting actors, but it's really smart to show how you're thinking about sequences. I think that's actually brilliant. And in terms of getting something funded, getting producers excited about you. I think that's a great idea, but that's, and that's, I don't know who's doing that, but that's something that I think would really matter. What I've been trying to do is meet actors. And so in terms of meaning like, well, if they're not 100% on the script, just meet me so they can hear me tell them about how I'm seeing it versus showing up with a lookbook. And I just think they all sort of become homogenized.
At which point of this meeting do you ask for the selfie? Is it in like the beginning?
Immediately.
Right off the bat?
Immediately.
Yeah, first thing. Yeah.
So actors just meet you even if they're not that into a script?
I mean, I think now I'm having meetings because of the movie. So I'm able to kind of meet whether or not they may not 100% love it, but they think they're willing to kind of meet, take a chance. So no, I guess, but I think after you do just even whatever the feature is, how tiny it is, I think you can say, look, I can do something a little bit longer than 30 seconds. I do think, I believe so wholeheartedly in commercial directors and their ability to tell longer stories. I think where people fail, I guess, is in losing track of the story and the narrative. And where if you're a visual storyteller only, I've seen, we've all seen sort of some commercial directors who make beautiful, beautiful lifestyle images and are just, you feel it and can make you cry in terms of their imagery. But then when it comes down to narrative film, losing track of the story, I think is a problem. It looks amazing. So
sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's the body of work. I think it's all of the above. It's their body of work. And I love this idea of narrowing it down. You sort of cull it down to what it most, sort of is representative of the movie that you want to make.
Yeah. It's kind of a different approach for each project, I suppose.
Yeah.
But so Matt, the thing that I'm getting the most, not the most, but a thread I'm picking up on is like, you're very passionate about commercial filmmaking and understanding. You're in that world. You know those people. You've got an incredible career. The question of the hour is, why make a feature?
Yeah, I mean, and that's a great question. And I've been very, very happy staying in my lane. I love commercials. I love what we do.
But what if you didn't make as much money and it was way harder and even more rejection?
I mean, is it possible there's more rejection? Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I guess technically not more rejection. Yeah.
There was a job. They were like, oh, I booked the job and it was like, oh, but the social aspect, does he know how to do an unboxing? Someone opening the burger box on an iPhone?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Okay. Well, yes, I can do that. But if you feel more comfortable,
we'll have his kids direct that one.
Right. Yeah. And as you know, it's like when you get, when you're busy in commercials, you're just sort of, it's all encompassing and you're living and breathing it. And there was one movie that, I don't know if you guys know Nat Faxon and Jim Rash. They've gone on to, they're huge, but they were commercial actors for forever. And some of my favorite ones to cast because they were
groundlings.
Yes, exactly. And improv masters. Like it didn't matter. Like the script could be terrible, but as long as you had those two guys, it would be fucking amazing by the end. Like they would just riff. And they had a script called The Way Back, which I don't know if you saw that movie. And it had been held up with a director and a production company for years, and it was finally coming free. And I don't know. It was on literally the last Blockbuster commercial. The agency knew Blockbuster was done, and they just had this like little bit of money to do like one final hurrah for Blockbuster. Literally, it was like the last time. And so it was on that, and I had Nat Faxon was casting it, and he said, "Oh, would you want to read the script? Like we finally got it back." And I read it, and I was like, "Oh, this would be incredible! Like I would love." And I ended up doing like a visual deck for him and for Jim, and they were like, "Oh, this is great," and we're going to talk to our managers, and then they ended up, I think, I don't know, a couple of days later, they got the call that they were nominated for an Oscar for The Descendants.
And that was the year, you remember, Rash, when they won, he like stuck his leg out like Angelina Jolie did. Do you guys remember that?
So
it's like such a funny, weird dick.
So
anyway,
sorry. But so the managers were like, wait, who's this guy, Matt Smukler? Like, has he ever done a movie? Like, are you sure that? Do you want to risk it never getting made, or you have a window right now? I mean, why don't you guys have said you wanted to direct something? And so they, they were very nice and said, look, we think we should take this opportunity to do it because we've got a little heat and our managers are telling. So that was one movie and that was it. Like I wasn't going up on
career.
I wasn't going up on movies. I wasn't doing that. It's who you work with. And there was a creative director, and she's a brilliant novelist also. And so she had a book, and she was like, I think this would be so fun to turn this into a movie. And so that was the script that I was working on with Jana, because Jana's a screenwriter and Kathy was a novelist. And so it was kind of like we were working as a threesome to, for Jana to kind of help in terms of structure. And that, I think it's just, that was what I was doing, but it wasn't like, I was like, yeah, I want to tell longer stories, but I really, I really love, I love our kind of parameters, and I love storytelling short form, but I'll be honest, like now I definitely am sort of have the bug also to kind of continue to try to do longer stuff.
Like, I feel like when you make a long form thing and you're like, hey, we can set something up now and pay it off in 20 minutes. Like, what joy. And also, like, maybe the story doesn't really work in 30 seconds, but it works great in 2 minutes.
Right. I know. And we've been there before too, where you're just like, I know. And, I feel like I love 60 seconds or 90. You're just sort of like, I feel like it's really hard to kind of, not comedy stuff works obviously really well in 30, but yeah, having a little bit of time to tell a story.
Yeah. A long form is my favorite, right? That's just like, oh, that's the digital cut. It could be 35, it could be 42. Who cares? Yeah.
I had a final question for you that was going to be about, becoming an expert at pitching through commercials and then like understanding this idea of this secret sauce. But I'm going to throw that question out because I was clicking around your website. I just realized you directed the Cheerios commercial with the white mom and the black dad that like caused a crazy uproar in the world.
Isn't that crazy?
Remember that, Matt?
Yeah, I do.
And
wait, yes.
It was like, now it's like 95% of commercials.
It's like
are cast
it's like woke Cheerios, right?
Yeah, I mean, they were
at the time. It was like, yeah. What was your experience with that?
I mean, that was one of these things where I was telling Matt prior to us talking. I started doing comedy. Like it was comedy. I was a comedy director, and the team that I was working with said, "We have this. It's funny-ish, but it's kind of emotional. Like, do you think you could do it?" And so I read it. I was like, yeah, fuck, I definitely would want to do this. And we cast it. The idea was
it's a Cheerios spot where a daughter the mom tells her daughter that Cheerios are good for your heart, and she goes, her dad is sleeping on the couch. She goes and she pours the Cheerios onto his heart.
Yeah.
Right. And he wakes up and he's like, what?
Yeah. And right. I don't know.
So that's a script.
That's a script. I don't know if you guys had this. This was sort of, I don't know, it's years ago, but they were where we would have to kind of cast in tandem. It would be like, okay, we're going to cast, African American, and then we're going to cast Caucasian. It was like, you never mixed. It was just sort of like
shoot two versions.
Yeah, there's either two versions, right? And this was, I don't think they wanted to do two versions, but I think they wanted to see sort of a black family and a white option, and then they would decide. And what we did was, I absolutely loved the dad, and I loved this mom, and this kid who, Gracie, I was like, she was perfect. And so we sort of did a version for them where we put that family together. And to General Mills' credit, I mean, they didn't say a word, didn't blink, didn't say anything. And they're like, "Whoa, yeah, we get it. They're great." And so there was never a discussion on our end. It wasn't like, "Oh, we're doing something unusual." And then they were all shocked at what happened. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, there was a lot of backlash from African American women. It was like, they were furious, and I mean, there was a lot of stuff that happened. But
our friends, the Fine brothers, made this video called Kids React. I think this was like the one that put them on the map.
Holy
they
shit.
showed your commercial to kids, and they said, why do you think people were upset by this commercial? And there's a white mom and a black dad, and the kids could not figure it out. They're like, because she's making a mess with the Cheerios, like, was dad sleeping and she woke him up? Like, they could not figure it out. And it was like that, it made them, they launched the whole React empire, and then continued.
Wow.
Then
that's so cool. I would send
React
that.
videos.
I know. I could go down all sorts of rabbit holes in terms of commercials, but I feel like, and I don't know if you guys agree, but like ideas like that just pure little ideas about a girl who misunderstands and pours the Cheerios on the heart. I'm not seeing those on TV anymore. Like, I'm not. My kids are sort of like, where are the commercials that you did that are on your reel? Like, we don't see those anymore on TV.
Yeah, I
Can
think
you tell that story in 6 seconds
sure
without any audio or dialogue.
With an influencer.
I have a theory for it, actually. Yeah. I think that honestly, look, we've all noticed that budgets are going down, right? And production budgets specifically, media buy. I think the numbers are, maybe they're going down, maybe they're staying the same, but they're moving a ton of that buy to digital. Right. And digital has Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff. And so the metrics are different, and also the expectations are different, right? If you do a broadcast TV spot, you're not assuming they're going to change the channel in 5 seconds. They're waiting for the commercial to be over. And so you can tell a story that doesn't say the brand name in the first 5 seconds, that doesn't start with a hook, that doesn't have a person's face up at top, and doesn't, whereas
you're also not measuring conversions. And
exactly. Like, what's the click-through rate? How many, all of that stuff. You can still make a good ad that way, but when it's digital first, or if you know that the digital is the workhorse, literally Google is telling ad agencies how to optimize their ads to make them more clickable.
Right.
And that's why there's this homogenization. That's why it's all people talking directly to camera, directly into the lens. All of that stuff is just the YouTubeization of advertising.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I tell you, I'm in a pitch right now for a campaign for a cable company, and they're basically like, look, our audience is 55 plus. Rural America, because no one else would buy cable right now.
Then they're not saying say Comcast up top. You know what I mean? There's no influencer in that spot.
Do you not think that there's some hope for now that Netflix and the streamers are having commercials? And you would think 100%. They would like interesting commercials leading up to their interesting programming, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you still get that during the Super Bowl, during the Oscars, during the top 1% of broadcast.
I'm just talking
spots,
about ideas. I'm not even talking about I'm just saying, where have the ideas gone?
Yeah, well, I think they're getting shot down because of the style of advertising that's working right now. But I think, to your point, Netflix rolling out ads, hallelujah. But also I see most of my ads through Hulu, frankly. Peacock rolls out, all of the streaming services are rolling out ads. And so that is, you can do an awareness campaign on those platforms, basically. And so,
I have a question for you guys.
YouTube. Yeah. Sorry. The last thing about that, a Hulu ad or a Peacock ad versus a YouTube ad, the YouTube ads, you can skip after 5 seconds. So
exactly. Yeah.
Right.
So those are designed to be 5 second.
Right. That's true. But Hulu, Hulu, you got to watch.
Front-loaded.
Have you worked with creatives or have you done something where you're like, this is a great idea and there's something more here that we could do, whether it's a TV show or something, or it's feature, is there, because did you know, General Mills, that Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was essentially an ad. I mean, that was funded by General Mills back in the day. It's basically a 2-hour ad. I mean,
commercial for chocolate. Sure. I mean, yeah.
It's like the Cavemen TV show based on the Geico campaign.
Yeah, which I had high hopes for that, but I don't know, something happened there. But I think, I know, I'm just curious if you guys have you done anything where you're like, this is such a great idea, we can make this into something more?
I mean, Matt and I have both done a lot of branded content. We did series for Verizon and shows.
That's cool.
This thing I did the video treatment on. It's actually an hour-long comedy mockumentary for a brand.
Oh wow!
What you're talking about, which is
you have a spot and you want to
supersede the brand.
I wish. Yeah. I mean, I think the branded content stuff, certainly there were instances where it would, but that was more that we were it was a sketch group and we were doing other sketches already, or it was a repeatable prank or something like that. Yeah. Nothing
like Adam Ruins Everything. And those, we've seen a lot of web series turn into TV shows, the high maintenance style
But I
things,
wonder
right?
why,
Rhapsody.
like, so do they ever come to you and say, you know, can you guys collaborate with us or help us turn something in, or they're coming to you with the ideas?
I did do a thing once with College Humor where an agency came to us with an idea that we then riffed on and turned into a series. But it certainly didn't have the intention of becoming something bigger than a branded content series. But I think there is that world has maybe kind of like gone away a little bit. But there was a period of time where ad agencies, as kind of a sidecar, would be like, we'll go to BuzzFeed or College Humor or Funny or Die and develop a branded series in addition to the big, shiny, expensive campaign.
I wonder why that went away. To me, that seems like that would be something that could be really cool for the brand. And
I think all of those companies are no longer around. I think that's it.
I guess, yeah. Good thing they don't listen to me.
Yeah.
Obviously, you guys have a lot of ideas, and you're not just there to execute. And so I do think that in terms of, you know, and sort of me coming off of this feature and how people really are looking for the director to not only just execute, but to sit there and to have ideas. And this is what we do. And it would be, I wonder why they don't reach out earlier to guys like you and involve you earlier in the process at directors, you know, who are more idea centric as opposed to just,
I will say the last campaign I did, we did, that it was baked in that I would, like, I had punch up sessions. I think that in comedy, depending on what the creative is, sometimes you'll be like, hey, I can put together a writer's room, or I can bring my comedy friends in, or like, I always, my stock joke I have is like, you know, you hire me to direct, but you get a rewrite for free, like that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's great.
But improv is part of like my thing and part of what I'm talking about. Oren hates improv now.
Today on my pitch call, they're like, so tell us, how do you work with improv and actors? I'm like, actors don't like improv. That's just something people write in treatments to get the job.
I like improv still. I still
no,
improvise.
You like improv if you have like you're riffing on some real clear thing, you know?
Yeah. There's
but
still
when
structure.
the agency's like, hey, you're holding ketchup, say something funny. You know?
Sure. Yeah.
You know who loves improv is Reed Scott from my movie and Veep. That guy is incredible.
Oh, really? Sure. Yeah.
But you're right. Most actors,
yeah.
It's like they just don't. But then if you're an improv guy, then let them rip.
I think if you set them up well, like you see TJ Miller doing these like long runs on Deadpool or whatever, and it's because it's like come up with 10 ways to insult this guy's looks. And it's Ryan Reynolds, you know, so it's easy.
Totally.
But if someone's just saying like, hey, you know, you love this cream cheese, say something about that. That's funny. You know, it's like in the commercial world, I think a lot of creatives and the agency side have trouble separating entertainment from selling product, you know?
Right.
They don't realize that those two things aren't always like helping each other, you know?
But so you brought up Reed Scott though, and it incited an interesting question. So you've got, like we've been talking about, just such an awesome cast, but kind of from all sorts of different worlds, right? You've got people who are more traditionally drama based, right? Like who are like, you know, we talked about Kiernan Shipka. She grew up on Mad Men. That's a word perfect show. You can't change, you can't move a clause around, the commas where it is, the period, like everything is perfect, right? And then Reed Scott from Veep, they're riffing nonstop, right? Like Matt Walsh was on that show. He's one of the, you know, forefathers of improv.
Yeah.
So how do you mesh all of those different acting styles and perspectives in a film like this?
I mean, we all met at my house, and we ended up having like a breakfast, and I was able to kind of observe the different personalities and the different almost styles that people had, in a very organic way. And I mean, I think that Reed is a improv guy. Alexander Daddario is not necessarily that, but she certainly appreciated it. And, and we also didn't have the luxury of the time I would have liked to have been able to just let Reed go. So that truth is he was able to get a couple of things in. And, but, and then it's interesting with Kiernan, you're absolutely right. Like that show was so word perfect, but she is extremely funny, extremely intelligent, and a fucking great improviser herself. So she's just kind of has this natural, I mean, she's like a triple threat in every way. So look, I think we all have our favorites, and I don't know about you, but like I'll see someone in a show and I'll make sure, write them down if I don't know who they are, and you start to keep a log of people that you just want to work with and dream case. And my biggest struggle now is trying to figure out a way to work with some actors that I think are so talented, but that aren't valued in the way that maybe I think they should be in the marketplace. It's sort of disgusting, and so how do we make something with them if we're not able to get financing? That's kind of
you're saying that financiers don't think they're famous enough, basically. Right. Yeah.
Right. Like a Will Smith or a Tom Cruise.
You can't uncastable.
Yeah.
Just unmakeable. Totally. No, it's always funny. It's like, well, we'll make this movie and there's like the same five people in different age groups, but it's the same. That's it. And it's like, how do you in your heart and your gut that this person's going to be a mega star, but how do you get that? How do you do it?
Dude, I was just listening to a podcast that I talk about all the time, The Town, and they did a survey of like, who are the movie stars that make people decide to go to the movies?
And there's like 4 of them.
And also none of them in that list are under 40 or even 50. Oh, yeah. We're talking old. Like,
wow,
the youngest one was like Chris Hemsworth, right? And he's 40.
Yeah, exactly. Like, think about that. That's crazy, man.
That's crazy.
Like,
but also you have to be in a lot of movies to get to that level.
Sure. But like when you say, who are the most famous people in the world? You say Brad Pitt, you say Will Smith, you say Tom Cruise. Those guys are pretty darn old, and they've been that famous basically our whole lives. As long as I've known what movies were, Tom Cruise has been famous.
It's so true. Yeah. But who's the Tom Cruise of our generation? Or not ours. I mean, we're kind of old, but he was Tom Cruise way back. I feel like that guy was Tom Cruise. Even when he did his first movie,
Tom Cruise was Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I actually haven't even seen Elvis, but that Austin Butler seems to be getting a lot of praise,
amazing. I like that movie a lot.
He's for a while.
I think he's going to be a big star. That dude.
Before we hop into our unpaid endorsements, how can people check out Wildflower?
So Wildflower, you can rent it now on Amazon or on Apple, but it will also be on Hulu on June 23rd.
Cool. And do you tweet or Instagram? Is there anywhere to follow you?
I'm not on ever since Elon Musk took over. I'm not on Twitter, but I am on Instagram. M Smukler, Smukler, not like the jelly.
Awesome. Well, do you have a few more minutes to hang out and endorse with us?
Sure.
Unpaid endorsements.
Oren, you're going to give me a hard time about this.
Yep.
I hadn't seen the Creed movies.
Okay.
And so I was like, Creed 3 is the biggest movie in the country right now. It's a phenomenon.
Super Mario Brothers.
That was it. It had a weekend before Super Mario Brothers. Mario Brothers is the biggest movie of the year. Creed was a hit. And I was like, I need to catch up. This is insane. And my wife and I had been like going back and forth. She's like, I haven't seen all the Rocky movies. I can't just jump in midstream. So I finally was like, I'm just going to watch this without you. And it took me like, I don't know, like 8 nights or whatever. I've been watching movies in like 10-minute increments. But goddamn, that movie is great.
Creed 1, the first one.
Creed 1 is incredible. And I'm not like a big blood sports guy. I dislike them very much, but I like sports movies, generally speaking. You could cut out the boxing in that movie and it would just be a great indie drama.
And that's Rachel Morrison shoot it?
Yeah. And obviously Coogler directed it, but we were talking about who are the upcoming movie stars. I guess it's
Michael B. Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan's like more than up and coming, but he's got it. He's incredible. That movie is great, and I dislike boxing.
Yeah,
and
it's not really about boxing.
It's not about boxing. The other thing that I think is interesting for listeners, besides it just being a good movie, is like the boxing is all meant to be symbolic of the emotional arcs of the characters, but it's not subtext. It's the text. Creed is like, I need to win this fight because I need to justify my existence as a person for these reasons. Rocky is like, I need you to win this fight because of I owe it to, like, it's they're explaining their character motivations so clearly, and it still works and is so beautiful. Great.
Yeah.
I like totally loved it.
It's perfectly by the book, Save the Cat, and yet it's still
so good.
Immersion. And it wasn't Rachel Morrison that shot it. It was Marise Alberti.
I've worked with her. Yeah, she's great.
Because I know
awesome.
Rachel shot Fruitvale Station, Ryan's previous movie, and I kind of know her. I'd seen her somewhere, and she was like, "Yeah, Ryan asked me to shoot Creed," and I was like, "I'm such an idiot. I didn't shoot it. I shot Mudbound instead." And then she got nominated for an Oscar for that. But to me, my favorite moment of that movie, because it's so simple and so stupid yet so effective, is there's this part where he's like riding his motorbike around or whatever, and I think he's just sitting.
Running. He's running.
Yeah. And it's like the end of like the Dark Night of the Soul moment. He doesn't know what to do next. He felt like he was going to be this boxer and that nothing's working out. And then some kid on a motor sports bike comes by and he sees him, and Michael B. Jordan says, "What's up? What's up?" And the kid goes, "You're what's up." And that's the whole scene.
Yeah.
And that's like what makes him think.
I haven't seen it. I gotta see
Dude, you gotta see it. It's so
that's
good.
That's the turning point. That's like, okay, fuck it. Act 3. Because it's like literally Michael B. Jordan, in those 4 words, realizing that he means something to the kids in this neighborhood, and it's like so simple and so formulaic, but just so perfect. And you're like, feel for, that moment. Anyway. Yeah. It's a good movie.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty great.
Yeah,
so.
Kramer, the DP I just worked with, and that was been on our podcast. He shot 2 and 3.
Oh, is that right? I didn't realize that. Wow, pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah, and Michael B. Jordan directed the 3rd one.
I did know that. Yeah. He's going places.
He's doing okay.
Yeah,
he's no Smukler and Low. He's not a Matt. He's a Mike.
Mr. Smukler, what do you got, sir?
I mean, I learned something last night that if you play tennis, I told you I'm very big into tennis, and it's been very cold in LA, which is unusual for us to play when I'm playing in the evenings. And if you apply a small amount of Vaseline to your nipples, you will have no chafing.
I have heard. I feel like there was like a sitcom or something. Maybe is it in an Office episode where Michael's
like a Seinfeld
Michael's nipples were chafing?
I don't know. All I know is I was playing doubles, and one of the guys had some Vaseline, and I took some and put it on my nipples, and I was no longer had chafing on the nipples.
You just felt so much better. That's a great endorsement.
Yeah,
so much better.
I mean, listeners, if you know what show this is from, please email us or tweet at us.
Can I ask, as a tennis player, how do you feel about pickleball?
I've played pickleball twice. I liked it. I thought it was super fun. I'm a tennis player though, so it's more of a social for me. It's social. It's fun. But I prefer tennis. But it was fun.
Yeah.
The sound though. Do you like that sound? That wiffle ball?
I don't know. My dad was a tennis player, and like now that he's older, he's gotten back into it thanks to pickleball in a way that like has been it's pretty awesome. But I know that they're like
no, that's cool.
They're converting all sorts of tennis courts all over the country, but especially in Los Angeles, it's like a phenomenon. So like I was wondering if tennis players have beef with pickleball players, or
like this. It's like this.
I don't think so. We should get our dads together.
Yeah.
My dad is here also and is a tennis player, and now is starting to play pickleball. So we'll have to exchange.
Yeah, there you go.
Set our dads up.
Yeah. Kaplan, what you got, buddy?
Yeah, I'm just gonna re-endorse something. Sometimes you get this like amazing free tool and you use it for years, and then all of a sudden the people that make it decide that they want to charge money for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, that's it. I'm never using this tool again. So for me, that happened with 4K Video Downloader.
No, wait, I pay for 4K Video Downloader. Is it not?
It's been free ever since I endorsed it on this podcast like 3 years ago. I don't know.
What is it?
It's if you want to rip a video from YouTube or Vimeo, you just paste the link in it, and it's like, here it is, 1080p or 20, the highest resolution. Mm-hmm. You can pull the audio. I mean, it's
all right. I'm writing this down.
Man. So fast. So, the best version. And I just did this pitch treatment video. I must have pulled like 80 different clips from YouTube. And on treatments, I pull a lot of stuff from YouTube also. And even if it's just to pull an image, like I used to screenshot, but now I just download it so I can go frame by frame. But I tried to use it today, and it's like, hey, you've reached your limit of downloads. I was like, what? I didn't know that there was a limit. I'm like, how much is this going to cost? What's the monthly subscription? And for $15, they give you a lifetime membership. So I was like, you know what? $15 is pretty good. That's like
of all
$13
the software,
in 2020 dollars.
Yeah. Of all the software you've endorsed over the many years we've been doing this show, easily the best. 4K video downloader.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so good. Yeah.
I use it every week.
Awesome.
And I think we might have talked about Adobe Podcast, but check it out. That's all I'll tell you. Google Adobe Podcast and try using it. And it is not for podcasting. It's for cleaning up audio files, and it is a miracle. Anyway,
crazy.
Thanks everyone for listening. If you want to hear more about what we're doing, if you want to email us questions, we're happy to pass on to Matt Smukler about his movie, about commercial career, about Vaseline. You can email us at justshootitpod@gmail.com. You can find us across all social media at justshootitpod. You can find me on Instagram. I'm at @okaplan.
And I'm across all social media at Mr. Maddenlow. This episode was edited by Noah Bayshore. Thanks, Noah. And it's produced by Tyler Small. And you're listening to music provided by the Free Music Archive and the artist Jazar. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.